Okay, would you like to do the intro?
So we are live on Facebook. Welcome to Coffee Talk with Nate and Julie. This is episode 27, which is for some people an hour later than usual, and for other people it's at the same time.
It's a fallback time.
Yeah.
Yes, the
Fallback
time
time.
change. I sort of forgot. Yeah, sort of
Well,
forgot to mention that.
I forgot that happened. I mean, I guess it does, but it doesn't here. So anyway.
Yes, it's very different for Americans because we always change the time, and I
Right.
just assumed everybody did to get
Yeah,
more
well,
sunlight, but
but
that
also
that is really a silly point of view, isn't it?
I should have realized as well, because when you send those like time and date converter links, it has a DT or an ST for like standard or daylight time. Yeah.
Right.
Huh. So which one is this? Oh yeah, an hour later. So you
No, we fall
potentially
back.
slept.
So yeah,
Wait.
you
So
fall
you got
back
an
to the
hour
spring
less or an hour
forward.
more?
We got an hour more.
Got it.
Although
Right.
I was in a
You
class
still
that was
wake
in
up at the same time.
Istanbul, so I was awake all night anyway.
What was? Yeah. What time was that for you? Was it almost exactly opposite?
Yeah, I basically went through my whole day of normal day and work and all of that. Had dinner. The first night I
Right.
waited up. It started at 11:30 p.m. It went till about 3 a.m. Then they had a lunch break, so I went to sleep for 2 hours and woke up at
Okay.
5. It ended at 8:30 or 9 in the morning. Went for a run, took a shower, and got ready for work again. So I had 2 hours sleep. And the next night I was like, okay, maybe I'll sleep a few hours before it starts. So I had like 2 days every
Right.
day, every 24 hours. I had 2 full days of living. It was really wild.
Yeah. George lives in Taipei. Maybe he's
I
a
don't,
also, yeah.
maybe.
He's I don't know. He's been a couple 7 days in Maestro, etc. But a lot of times, when he does a class like that, he'll like stay up for the first part of class and then go to bed at lunch break, and then he'll listen to the second half recording before doing the first half the next night.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like,
In
yeah,
SOP, you're trading sessions. So
right. Yeah, that's
I
kind of
didn't want
tough.
to miss out. And
Yeah.
and then I did think I fell asleep for part of it and I re-listened to things and I heard it also. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I wasn't asleep.
I gotta say, I mean, I started listening to the India 7 Day again last week, which was 5 years ago. And there's so much information and there's so much stuff in class that listening to recordings it's so good because you hear things that you missed. And even if you listen to class,
Totally.
3 or 4 times. And I remember when I first heard about people buying recordings, because you used to buy them, right? Like
There's so much
you
information.
would
Yeah.
you would
Now
have
it's
class
included.
and then
Yeah.
right, which is so great because I always had the point of view, I would very rarely buy the recordings.
Oh my God, I always bought the recordings.
Yeah, I did not. I might have to ask you for a few of those classes that I was at. Like, hey.
I think there was one time I didn't, when some annoying person like basically took over the class and asked all these questions, but they weren't questions. It was just all this, complaining about stuff. Yeah.
Right.
I have recordings up to here.
Yeah, and I have
Ruth is there. Hi,
so many
Ruth.
recordings. I didn't turn on my comments. Yes. Hi, Ruth.
Yeah. So one of the things that's so great about the SOP Symphony of Possibilities is it goes sort of everywhere. And then we do these energetic sessions that expand your awareness, like beyond, 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 beyond. And
Yeah.
and the conversations were so deep. Just I can't even begin to say, but there's going to be a lot of things that came out of this particular class that I'm sure will go into COPE and
They'll trickle down to the other classes.
yeah, they got to something that is underneath right and wrong,
Right.
which was really
That
cool.
sounds like kind of a big deal. I mean, no significance, but right and wrong's kind of. So you mean I don't need to worry about right and wrong anymore?
Well, don't worry about it, no. But it had to do with like, I think it was righteousness. Righteousness. It's sort of like judgment and judgment light, refined
Mhm.
judgment. You know,
Right.
it's like those things are so subtle, or they're so part of your um, energetic field that you think that that's what is. You know,
Right.
you don't think
Yeah.
that you're judging when it's a refined judgment, and you don't think that you're right or wrong when you're righteous. It's like that, it's been handed down to you, and by golly, this is how it is. Hi, Cindy.
Sounds like I need to listen to that. That has no connection whatsoever to uh, churchy type things.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, regardless of church, it's like, you know, what your parents were. And
Right.
you know, we make our parents like it, right? And you
Yeah.
either try to be like them or try not to be like them, and either way, that's
Yeah.
ingrained.
That's such a. it- It's just connected to so many different things. I mean, even when you talk about money and like, are you willing to outcreate your parents or have more than your parents or like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, interesting you bring that up. And it reminds me of when I graduated college, I moved out here to California. I had a job that moved me. And um, and then I started my own business. And within a couple of years, I had far surpassed what my mom was making. So I was still in my 20s.
Right.
And there was that weird, like, I'm making more money than my mom has ever made in her entire life
Right.
in 1 year. It was crazy.
So it wasn't like a limitation for you.
No, but you could feel the weirdness for her and for other people.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it was weird, and it made it so that you couldn't be like totally proud and excited about it. You're like, sorry, I didn't mean to, you know, outshine
Right.
you. um, and they're like, no, it's
So
great,
weird.
and you're like, oh.
Yeah, that was genuine.
So pat and pock, everything that anywhere I'm holding myself back now.
Hmm.
Yes, Cindy saying
Yeah.
outcreate your husband as a woman. Yes, exactly. Same thing. But the thing is it's like it doesn't have to be this boom and then you're better or you're greater. It's like if you have somebody that you can play with, you can play leapfrog. It's like you choose greater, then they choose greater, then you choose greater, and it continues.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I guess I was just fresh on my brain. My family recently all got together without me. I mean,
What?
no. It's perfectly understandable. Like my sister had a baby, and so my other sister and my dad went to visit. You know, but I didn't. It's not the easiest time to travel. I
No, but
mean,
you
it's easy to
Zoom. You
get
could
out here.
Zoom in.
Yeah, sure. Yes, of course.
Would they forget about you? Poor
No,
these.
no, 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 not at all. No, nobody forgot. So, um, so the SOP just finished up then less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah,
No,
yesterday morning for me.
right.
And I had the day off yesterday from my day job as the owner of the business.
Sure.
I
You
gave
decided
myself
to take
a day
Sunday off. Nice
off.
job.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Like yeah, it's just been very interesting. Time is
And I
all
imagine,
sorted.
yeah, and I can imagine also, I was just thinking about this a couple hours ago, is how it must be pretty insane with the election looming. It's like in addition to all the other insanity. Um, I mean, that's you've got to be picking up on that from just everybody,
Yeah,
like
it's interesting. I was chatting with a friend yesterday, and he was saying that his stomach is totally in knots with anxiety. He doesn't do access, um,
mhm,
and he's like, "I just want to know, like on election day, they supposedly will already know." And I'm like, "How can that be? Like people are
right.
still voting, and And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, the way it works, it's down to 4 states and they can tell. And he's like, so until I find out, I can't relax. And I thought, well, what else is possible? you know, tie yourself up
That's
in knots for another couple of days, or, maybe just realize that whatever will be, and relax, relax.
yeah. Um, but that's such an interesting like decision that someone's come to, is that I'm going to feel this way until it's finished.
I know.
Like like they've already decided this is how I feel as a reaction to the situation, and until the situation's resolved, I will continue to feel this way. Like,
Yeah, I've really been looking at that. Our point of view creates our reality, decisions and all of that.
yeah,
It creates our reality. And somehow, like you just get deeper and deeper awarenesses about that. And so if something is showing up and it's not what you'd like, you can ask, what point of view do I have? Or would I have to change for this to change?
right.
So that you can start to weed it out and create something different.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this before, but also the gift that becoming aware of everything that I say, like now I have like this automatic check. I don't how would I explain it? But like when I say something that is a decision, I have this sort of alarm bell that goes off, right? And I'm like,
It's
oh, that's a
awareness.
decision. Yeah, yeah. And then also, but listening to the way that other people talk and the way
Yes.
that make definitive statements about like, this makes me feel like this, or he's always like this, or, any kind of a finalized decision statement is, yeah. I've become so much more aware of those, and also aware of how people are not aware of that. Like if you try to point out to somebody like, oh, that's a weird decision to make, and they're like, no, no, that's the way the world works. You're like, ugh, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, well, and that's why we do what we do. And, there's this podcast and there's all kinds of ways to get the tools out there so that people know that their point of view does create their reality. And you're not at the effect of it. You can change your point of view because it's your choice to have the points of view you have. People think,
Yeah,
well, no, that's just the way it is. No, it's not. We bought it, we created it, we invented it, we're selling it to other people, but we can totally change it if we want, if we desire, I should say.
Yeah. And that's even, I mean, buying, like you said, buying points of view, and you say, who does that belong to? And that tool, some people think that's more like physical, sort of when you have some sort of intensity, you're like, oh, who does that belong to? But it can also be when you have a decision about something, or when you
Thoughts,
have
any
a
thoughts?
certain point of view, anything. You're like,
Mm.
oh, who does that belong to? Yeah. And then I was listening to, what's the other class I just listened to? Diva, one of the X-Men classes
Mm.
recently, and she was talking about how Gary told her she has to do Who Does That Belong To for 6 months, I think, or a year, as opposed to like the standard 3 days or something. And it was like, ugh, ugh.
Well,
But
awareness is so subtle, and we don't seem to get how much we pick up. So I can totally see that. One of the things that I noticed is during the SOP class, they had three different threads in Telegram. And they had one where you put your name in so that you can be matched up, and one
yep,
where they've matched you up and you have to look for that in this,
yep,
400
yep,
people. So you're like,
yep.
"Ugh." And what I noticed, I turned off some of the sounds and stuff so that I wouldn't hear bang, bang,
Sure,
bang, bang, bang constantly.
right,
So I'd wake up, I'd put my name in, I'd start listening to the class, have my phone over there, and all of a sudden I get this, oh, I'm going to check it. And as soon as I checked, my name and the other person who I was matched with was either there or there was like one other person underneath. Like it
right,
wasn't way up in the, they had done
yeah,
it hours ago.
yeah,
So every single time we were matched up, I had that, oh, let me go look. And it was right there. It was really interesting, even in the fog of like, oh my God, what time is it? It's like 5 o'clock
sure,
in the morning. But our awareness is that subtle and that quick and that sharp. So, what if really literally everything that we're thinking is some of that too? Like, what if it's not just our own created thoughts? What if we're picking up stuff
yeah,
from all over the world?
mm, yeah. And also, like when you're willing to be that aware, it's the things that, I don't want to use the word important, but the things that are relevant to you in the moment, like you will be aware of those things. So, like you said, when your name comes up for matching or something is going on, you get a,
Yeah. And
like,
part of
oh,
that,
this is,
yeah, part of that is to acknowledge when you knew, because that builds your muscle of awareness. So you acknowledge it. Oh, wow, I knew that. Oh, I did it again. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Like, what else am I aware of?
acknowledgement is so key. And
Uh-huh.
it's like in Shannon's money class a few years ago, um, one of the homework items that went through the entire series was to do an acknowledgement session,
Mm.
like sit down and like require yourself to acknowledge what you're creating and what you've created and what you've, you know, um, and she's like, acknowledgement leads to receiving. You have to acknowledge what you created.
It's so true. It's so true. We uncreate so much by not acknowledging. I was
Yeah,
just when I have like my business meetings, and you can't see the things that are showing up yet because they haven't actualized, and but we start asking questions like, okay, what have we created? What is going on? And you can perceive like this huge energetic thing that we're creating, and it just hasn't quite actualized yet. So it's cool,
yeah,
but you can easily dismiss it and then have to start from scratch.
yeah. I was just thinking like, what would the opposite of acknowledging be? And for me, it is that dismissiveness. Like when you create something and you're sort of like, that wasn't me. That was just like circumstances. It was random. It was someone else. And like, no, you created that, you chose that at some point, and then it shows up. And then when you acknowledge that you made a choice for that, and you're like, oh, that was kind of a dumb choice, Nate, what are you doing? Like, but that's still acknowledgement, like you acknowledge that your choices are what create your life. So yeah, acknowledgement is definitely key. Yeah. So this is an SOP you would recommend possibly purchasing and listening to?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It,
I guess some
you
of it's
know,
going to probably,
yeah, it, it it was really intense, and and yeah, I imagine that it will create a lot of change for somebody after the fact. But I like living through those things and then
sure. Yeah.
reviewing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
That's so cool though, when you're in that class and then you realize like, oh wow, this is amazing.
and you know what's so funny is that I had signed up for an earlier one in Mexico, and it was canceled, and I was kind of pissed because I could have done the one before that. That would have been on my time zone. It would have been easier,
Right.
you know, all of that. It would have been in
Hmm.
US dollars instead of euros. So I ended up having to pay way more because it was in euros. And I'm
Right.
like up in the middle of the night. But honestly, the it, I love taking the one that's right before the Maestro class because it's supercharged. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just how it goes. It's just
Yeah.
supercharged.
Yeah. And Maestro's, like you said, the end of this month, right?
Yeah, 3
Yeah.
weeks away.
And it's moved to Houston.
Yeah, he was
It's
gonna
a it
stream he was gonna do it only online, and people were having pods in different
Sure.
places,
Right.
but he was not gonna go to Italy because you can't get in. Um, but he's just decided to do it online and live from Houston.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going, and that's like, this is the first place I'm going to travel this entire year. Last year, I think I went somewhere every month.
Right.
This year, it's home.
Yeah. I wonder how many people there will be. Like, will there be a physical sort of limit to how many people can go, or
Um,
like venue wise, it's
they
like,
were
oh, we can only have.
saying that in the size space that they have a
Mhm.
certain number, but if more people start to show up, they'll just get another section added to the ballroom so that,
Ah,
so
right.
the
Okay.
distance is,
Right.
yeah.
Wow. That's very cool. It will be online though, so that's an option.
Yeah. And our point of view creates our reality. So, what points of view would we have to change for everything in our life to be amazing, expansive, easy, fun, joyful? And what can we choose toward that?
I was running through a list. I'm like, God, that one and that one. That would be a good one. Nice. Huh.
All of those.
Yeah.
Will you destroy and uncreate
Yeah.
them all? Right and wrong, good,
Yes.
bad, bottom, pop, all nine shorts, boys and beyond. Boom. Now what's possible?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's really funny because, like, when everything got locked down, I was sort of at the end of my um, mm, I don't know, patience or whatever with my other business, my jewelry business. I didn't want to have to be there like 7, 8 hours a day,
Right.
7 days a week. I just was done. And so when lockdown happened, it was just a really nice break. And then it was like 2 months, and I thought, oh, good. I wanted to be another one because I didn't want to go back to that. Um, and then it opened up here in mid June, and I started going in just short hours because that's what everybody was doing. just like
Right.
11 to 3, a few hours. Hardly anybody showed up. And I still didn't even want to play with making jewelry. My hands weren't interested. I wasn't interested. All I was doing was access classes online and
Yeah.
facilitating. But I don't know, I must have changed a point of view at a certain point in June or July. And um, because I had the point of view that I wasn't sure I wanted to do it and I wasn't in it and I didn't have my energy in it, there was like no income coming in. And
Right.
now, several months later, when I was like, okay, I'm willing to have this and outcreate and whatever, every month it's gone up, 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 up. And now last month was, I think it beat February when things were open, which isn't great because February is not a great month anyway, but I'm
How's it getting better than
that
this?
it's going up. And sometimes you change a point of view and it takes 3 months for you to see the change that it creates.
Yeah.
So change a point of view right now, and in 3 months, set a timer and see what happens.
What's that going to be? Mid-January? I don't know. December, January, end of January. Got it.
Well, don't think about that. Look at what choices
Oh,
you
I know.
make.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. All right. Well, yeah. So we're pretty much almost out of time, and
There
you
were
had
other
your
comments.
expand. Oh, I didn't turn on I wasn't looking at Facebook.
Anyway. Oh, Miguel. Yeah, sometimes you can't say anything to people because they just don't want to hear it. And so that guy, he was my hairstylist. He just likes being around me. It makes him feel better. But there's very little I can say. So that's all right.
Right.
I just be in allowance and yeah. Just talking about a movie. They didn't acknowledge all that he was being accomplished. Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference between being focused on what you want and choosing in that direction, because in access we talk about broadbanding your awareness, not tunneling in and focusing on something. So if you know generally the energy that you'd like to create and choose and be in life and go in that direction, you can acknowledge and you can be aware of where you're going at the same time. It's not like you can only be aware of one thing at a time. So that might have helped that person. But a lot of people like to distract themselves with what they're not doing and what they're not being, instead of looking at what they are being and choosing.
Right. Yeah.
Because then you can be wrong like everybody else.
Being wrong is it's good to be wrong, right? Correct?
Well, that's when you're right, is when you're wrong.
Yes, that's true. All right.
You don't have to do the right and wrong, and you can just choose light and be happy. And recognizing that being happy is wrong, and that's okay. Because you don't care. You're choosing light. Oh, Nate needs to go to sleep. You're fried.
I'm sorry. I was prepared for an hour earlier, and so
I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. No,
should have
it's fine.
realized
I didn't register.
the world
It was
doesn't
daylight
function
savings.
the same way that they do in the United States.
Anyway, so we'll talk about then next week and see how it goes.
All right.
But
Sleep well.
I'll see you then. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you later.
Join me
Bye-bye.
in the expand. Bye.